All right, let's dive into one of the most baffling and, frankly, terrifying medical cases in recorded history. It's the story of a man whose hunger wasn't just an appetite, it was an all consuming, unstoppable force.
So, let me ask you something. Think about the most you've ever eaten in one go. Maybe a big holiday dinner? Thanksgiving, perhaps? Okay, whatever you're imagining, just know it's nothing compared to the man we're talking about today.
Get this. In a single day, a man named Charles Domery ate 16 pounds of raw meat. And on top of that, he ate tallow candles. Just straight up wax. And believe it or not, that was only part of his meal. But here's the real kicker. After consuming this mountain of food and non-food, he showed zero signs of being sick. No indigestion, no stomach ache, nothing. He felt perfectly fine. And the doctors who were watching him, they were absolutely floored. So who was this guy? Well, Charles Domery was born in Poland sometime around 1778. And from the age of 13, it was super clear that his appetite was anything but normal. It was this constant gnawing hunger that would basically rule his entire life.
Now, you think someone with a diet like that would look, well, strange. But no, he was tall, over 6 feet, and described as having a pleasant countenance. Doctors said he was totally normal mentally. And here's a really wild detail. Domery claimed he had 8 brothers and that all of them had the same condition.
Domery's story really starts to get crazy when he joins the army. You see, for him, war wasn't about loyalty to a country. It was all about where he could get his next meal. So while he was serving in the Prussian army, the rations were just not cutting it. He was starving. So what does he do? He just deserts, walks right over to a French outpost and surrenders, basically in exchange for food. The French commander, probably bewildered, gave him a big melon, which Domery ate right there on the spot, rind and all. Once he was in the French army, the stories about his appetite became legendary. I mean, his fellow soldiers swore that in just 1 year, he ate almost 200 cats. When food was scarce, he'd eat 4 to 5 pounds of grass a day just to feel full. But his all-time favorite meal? A raw bullock's liver.
But if you think that's disturbing, the most horrifying incident of all happened when he was at sea, on a French warship called the Hulk.
Okay, you might want to brace yourself for this one. During a naval battle, a cannonball hit a crewmate and severed his leg. In the middle of all that chaos, Domery's compulsion just took over. He grabbed the severed leg and started eating it. The other sailors were so horrified they had to physically wrestle it away from him and throw it overboard. So, in 1799, the Hoche was captured by the British. Domery was taken as a prisoner of war to a camp near Liverpool. And it was here that his unbelievable appetite went from being a campfire story among soldiers to a serious subject of medical curiosity. The British guards were just stunned. They started him on double rations. It wasn't enough. They kept increasing it until he was getting the daily food rations of 10 men. And he was still hungry. Since his rations weren't enough, he started supplementing his diet. He ate the prison cat. He ate at least 20 rats that he caught in his cell. He would even take the medicines from the infirmary that other prisoners refused. And yeah, he ate the tallow candles in his cell too. This situation got so extreme that the prison commander got some top naval doctors involved. They decided they had to see this for themselves. So they set up a formal experiment to find out, once and for all, just how much this man could possibly eat. One of the doctors, a Dr. J. Johnston, documented the whole thing. And his description is pretty chilling. He wrote that the way Domery attacked his food wasn't like a man eating, it was like a hungry wolf just tearing it apart. So the experiment started at 4 in the morning. First, they give him 4 pounds of raw cow's udder, which he ate. Then at 9:30, he had 5 pounds of raw beef, a whole pound of candles, and a bottle of beer. Then at 1 in the afternoon, another 5 pounds of beef, another pound of candles, and 3 more bottles of beer. And the results of all this? The part that's just so hard to wrap your head around. Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. He didn't throw up. He didn't even use the latrine. His pulse stayed normal. His temperature was fine. It was like his body was a furnace that just incinerated everything he put into it. Which, of course, brings us to the biggest question of all. What on earth could explain this? Even now, more than 200 years later, Charles Domery is one of the greatest medical mysteries of all time.
The medical term for his condition is polyphagia. But calling what Domery had polyphagia is like calling a supernova a bright light. His case is so far off the charts, it's really in a category all by itself.
Modern science can offer a few guesses. Maybe it was an extreme case of hyperthyroidism, or maybe some kind of damage to the part of the brain that controls hunger, the amygdala. But we will simply never know for sure because he was never autopsied. It's all just speculation.
His story was so incredible that even Charles Dickens wrote about it decades later. He joked that you could put a guy like Domery on a stage just eating, and he'd be a much bigger draw than any famous actor.
But after the experiment, after all the observation, the historical record on Charles Domery just ends. He vanishes. We have no idea what happened to him. It leaves us with this one last haunting question. What ever became of the man who could eat everything?